Once again, here we are, back in Miami in our favorite neighborhood dive to conduct another beer talk. And this one is basically a Miami post-show, play-by-play wrap-up.
So I think one of the things that I want to mention that I thought was kind of a little unusual was the synergy of all the people that when we all eventually came together, installation day, and I had been working with everybody pretty personally for months, but to meet everyone in person, it was kind of like meeting friends I already knew in some instances. And the way sort of things, you know, we lost an exhibitor, which means we put one exhibitor with John Bambino, and they ended up like having a bromance within the first 5 minutes.
Right.
And it was like
John Bambino. Yeah. I think that everybody really kind of pulled together. And you know, this is one of those things you really need in affairs. You need everybody to be working together to make the show as good as possible. And in some instances, you'll get an exhibitor who is just there for their own.
Of course, I mean everybody is there in an art show, in an art fair, as opposed to an exhibition.
Right, but it's a group effort, and I think that's one of the things that sometimes can be lost in these things is that everybody's pulling for each other, and pulling for the show, and pulling for themselves too. And in this show, you're absolutely right. There was a real feeling of camaraderie among the artists who were exhibiting, and that showed. It showed in how they all worked together, shared perspectives on the work,
and they resisted. Overhanging, everyone understood.
Well, I really credit you with that. I think that you're working with them pre-show and curating and,
Well, it's also being very clear about your vision, and I was very clear, even though I didn't know exactly what all the work was going to be. I knew what it was like to be visually assaulted with so much work, and I knew that it was important to give, space.
We talked about that a lot. Didn't we? When we were walking around some of the other shows, there was so much work that you began to kind of psychologically edit out what you were seeing.
But at the same, on the other side of that token, I think that in some weird way, it also learn to develop a very keen and specific eye that is self-editing. Like you tend to just hone in on what you're interested in and sort of ignore the rest. But I think maybe you may miss something. You may miss, a surprise within that by doing that as well. But it is like a training, going to these fairs over and over and over again, and that whether you want to or not, you learn to skim and skip and not spend very much time looking at things. And so I don't know if visitors necessarily looked at anything longer in our fair than any other fair, but it did seem that visitors were taken a little aback by what we were doing.
Well, part of that may be the sheer scale of the space that exhibitors had to work with, because I think that in almost every instance, the rooms were larger than booths at other fairs. They were twice the size of almost any room I saw at any other art fair.
Well, and it's sort of an understanding of architecture and space too. I mean, that I think about that as a media artist, as I know a lot of media artists do. That it's not just about image, but it's about how a person engages with that space. Is there one chair? Is it a theater? Are there two chairs? Are you meant to sit beside someone? Are you meant to, stand? Are you meant to be uncomfortable? Are you meant to be comfortable? So I'm thinking about all of that particularly when I was dealing with the media room.
I also think that the actual space of the hotel, it's Christmas, the space of the hotel itself lent itself to the kind of feeling of being the hotel felt like a house.
That's it. The rooms felt larger, but the feeling was still very intimate. So the hallways
it's kind of colonial architecture.
Roman Arbella's work was, where Kevin O'Malley's work was, forced the viewer to be quite close to the work intentionally. So that was, I think that really worked to their advantage, even though it was a little bit unexpected. Even the lights that were hanging in the hallway created all these shapes that mimicked
and worked with the
Roman's work, which was not something we planned.
geometrics of his work. Yeah,
it was crazy. It was really, and it's those little surprises after having so many hits every day of, here's another crisis, here's another crisis, here's another crisis, right up into the show day.
Just organizationally, you're dealing with that stuff constantly.
So nice to have a pleasant surprise that worked to our favor for a change.
Right.
So just like John and Paul apart being together and really working together.
I thought Roxanne Savage's room was really excellent too. I mean, she was very kind of minimal in her aesthetic, and the spaciousness of the room
reflected in the swimmers that she did, in the water themed work that she did, and whether viewers were conscious of it or not, it did play a part in how they were reading that work. And so just like when they're bombarded, with too much, that plays a part without you maybe even realizing as well.
Diane Ponder did the same thing. Living room gallery. She also had a very kind of sparely curated room with a lot of kind of 4x5 photographs, wall or ceiling hung, kind of mobile artworks.
But everything felt very fragile and organic, and was really like a project space that changed as the exhibition went. And Paul-Emile Roux from Montreal,
I thought his use of the windows was brilliant.
As a project space, even though he had sort of sellable work in Select Fair, he used new material to present the concept behind his land peddler, and use the challenges such as the windows and use transparencies up to really highlight the work as opposed to, oh, this is a problem, how am I going to deal with it? And think of it more inclusively as opposed to these are just problems, but that they can actually push the work in a way that and push the artist to show with a little bit more intuitiveness and a little bit more imagination that adds to the work and isn't just like, oh, well, look at all the problems with this one.
They all solve the problems in the architectural space, site specificity question very well. I think every single room, I think, was really, the way in which it was presented, I thought was really strong. And that was a big difference. I mean, in many ways, you get a lot of salon-style hanging, a lot of kind of, the commercial approach oftentimes is, let's put floor-to-ceiling work, stacks of work.
Wall is real estate. It's purchased real estate. And if you don't use it, then you're wasting it. And when I kind of think that yes, it's real estate, but it's like when you teach drawing or painting or basic design, negative space doesn't mean that there's nothing there.
No, exhibition curated. I mean, Alison Kotzig, I think one of the largest kind of more volume. Her work took a lot of mass,
But it was very condensed in one installation, and there was nothing else on the wall, which I told her.
Dana's work went really well with that. I mean, the pairings were actually quite well done as well. Talking about talking about Paul Apart and John and Adina, but I thought Dana and Allison's work really resonated really well. So that overall those aspects of the show were really strong, I thought, and foot traffic was solid.
It was steady, so it was never feeling like
overcrowded
of people, and you couldn't see the work. And in the evenings, it was like a kitchen party out in the front.
There were always people in the rooms, always moving around, always going on. And the front terraces, I thought, really turned into kind of like a communal area for people. We're getting the punchy music here, but. But I thought that those aspects were really strong.
Next year we'll see what it's like getting a classroom of students. some semesters it's just like this beautiful chemistry that works perfectly and everybody's on board and there aren't any personality difficulties. And then sometimes it's just like clunky and not working. So this year it just happened to be
coalesced quite well, I thought. And
not every, like Holly was gone quite a bit. She was our solo winner.
But that was for her exhibition. It wasn't necessarily for her to. People made choices.
I know, but she was very proactive, and something that the writer in our newspaper did say was that all but two, because we only had two artists that couldn't come, all but two of the rooms were manned by the artists, so they were all there. All the time.
Well, we should talk a little about the video lounge, which I thought was spectacular. It was a really beautiful space in the show as well. And the artist went, I think the one who was there consistently the most was Pierre Pandria. I know Pilar was there as well, but so.
You want to talk about this in this one, or you want to do that?
No, it's part of the whole thing, I think.
Well, not really, but okay. So something I've noticed before, and I've had that too loud.
Okay. Or we'll pick up the video lounge after this chorus act is over. All right.